a disproportionate number of instances of police brutality and shootings against black people. I don't think it's a racial issue at all. I think it's because, for whatever reason, black people are committing more crimes in the United States. And I don't discount the idea that there are systemic factors to it, maybe cultural factors. But I think to just go out and say that it's racism, it's institutional racism, that doesn't help anything. Like that's not going to help people move forward.
Okay.
We need to understand why the data is the way it is, and I just don't buy that it's got anything to do with over-policing, because I can't find anything about it.
Okay.
And believe me, I looked.
Okay. What's your email address? I'll send it to you.
I'll send you my email address privately.
Okay. That'll be great.
But unless you are in our shoes, you will never understand it.
Yes.
Ever.
If you don't want to, you can, but if you don't want to, you won't.
I'm trying to, but I'm a data guy.
Okay, let's talk offline about the data. I'll get it for you.
What is a 17-year-old white child doing with a rifle in a riot? What was he doing there?
He was defending his community. He was asked to be there by the car
17 years old. He's not even an adult.
Doesn't matter.
He's not a cop. He
A
shouldn't be there.
17-year-old
He's not a cop.
kid is
Leave it up to the
defending
authorities. I'm supposed to leave it up to the authorities. I can't go out there and start shooting people if I'm going to defend my community.
He didn't
Leave it to the
start-
cops.
he didn't
That's why
start
we pay
shooting people,
taxes for.
He didn't start shooting people, though.
Now
He was
let's
attacked by two
now
people.
It's not whether he started shooting people or not. It's that he went there purposely to provoke
No, he
with
didn't.
a rifle.
You didn't watch any of the trial. And this is kind of where my line is, because I watched all of that trial. And I've seen the media
So let
cover
me
it
ask you,
terribly.
Michael, did you watch the trial of Tamir Rice?
Of course not. That's not important.
Look up the trial of Tamir Rice. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if it's a shootout between the cops and other black people with guns, that is not where you see a Black Lives Matter hashtag. But when there's a kid walking home or someone who is sitting in a car and they are not armed and they are not doing anything, but they are still met with violence, that's where we're talking about police brutality. And that's where it shouldn't happen. And those are not criminals or not hardened criminals. And it was not anything violent going on at the time until the police introduced the violence.
Well, so that's not necessarily true, though. And the other problem, though, is...
What was Philando Castile doing that required him to be shot?
Well, first of all, he was correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he was under the influence of marijuana.
Well, he wasn't even driving.
Philando Castile?
Passenger seat.
Okay. Well, look, that was not a good case. That was bad. And I know it's saying that Philando Castile deserved to be shot, but the police officer in that case said that he believed that Philando Castile was reaching for a gun. Now, if that's not true, that's obviously bad. Okay. But you're also taking.
Wait, hang on a second. I want you to think about what you're doing in this moment. You're saying, if that's not true, the police officer said this, well, this is obviously, well, in this one case is not bad. We hear this over and over again where, well, this one thing is an aberration, but there are so many examples of those aberrations that it does form a pattern. And that's
why you need data.
Okay.
Which is why you need data.
But if you look at,
But if the data is skewed, it's very hard to
if you
use
take all the data and say that all the data is noise, then I can't present you with data because if you're not going to look at it as a pattern, but only as additional aberrations, then I'm not going to be able to convince you of this.
Well, I'm not talking about noise or aberrations, and I mean that in the data that I presented here, for example, like the DWI data. Okay, we're seeing 600K white arrests versus black arrests. Well, if black neighborhoods are being over-policed, you would expect that to be much higher for black versus white, but they're not.
What if they don't have a car?
Well, fine, then look at the other ones. Look at drug abuse. Look at liquor laws.
I think the discussion on the data is kind of ridiculous when we as minorities can clearly see what's happening to us in America. And I think that's what gets frustrating because we just